very soon, India will make history by sending its second astronaut or Gaganyatri in space. We have the famous squadron leader Rakesh Sharma, who went into space on an Indo-Soviet mission in 1984. Now, ISRO and NASA are jointly working together to send an Indian astronaut to space to the International Space Station. This is a mission which has been spearheaded jointly by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Joe Biden. I have with me Pearly Pandya. She is the head of government business for Axiom Space in Houston, the company which is involved, a private company in the training of India's astronaut to go to the International Space Station. Thanks a lot for speaking to me, Pearly.
Thank you so much, sir.
You were born in Ahmedabad. You studied in America, and now you are fostering an important collaboration between India and America by training two of our test pilots to go to the International Space Station. I understand only one will go. How does it feel personally?
Well, personally, it's a huge honor for me. As you said, as an Indian American, this mission has the ability to bridge two of my worlds, but also the Indian diaspora internationally as well. I think people are very excited to see India embark on its first mission on the International Space Station. And as part of the Axiom space team and being a part of this effort for the last year, it's very exciting to have Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla and Group Captain Prashant Balakrishnan Nair training with us. It feels very surreal.
How are they doing?
They're doing very well. They're learning a lot. They have to learn, of course, all of the requirements per NASA, but they're also learning about operations on the International Space Station from the ESA side, from the JAXA side. They're learning how to operate payloads, doing very important research, scientific research, while they're in microgravity, as well as understanding the adaptations that happen when you travel to space.
Now, what is Axiom's role in a NASA-ISRO program?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So Axiom Space is the only company that is able to do these commercial astronaut missions to the International Space Station. We've done 3 astronaut missions till date, and this is our 4th one, which is very exciting. So we do everything from, it's an end-to-end mission, everything from astronaut training, medical operations. We have our own mission control center in Houston, and so we're able to have constant communication with our astronauts, helping them as they conduct their experiments and technology demonstrations on the station.
Now, is it a commercial operation, or is it a point where this is being done as a friendship mission between India and America?
Well, for us as a commercial company, we're able to enable new countries, institutions, and individuals to have access to space. And so for us, that is the role that we play at Axiom Space.
So Axiom Space is going to hire SpaceX, Falcon 9, and Crew Dragon, or how does it work? Give me the nitty-gritty of how this complex web will play out.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like you mentioned, the SpaceX will be supplying the rocket and the capsule to access the International Space Station, and then everything else, we're right there next to our astronauts.
And this training process which is happening, is this mainly with Axiom, or is NASA also involved in it?
Yes, so all of the training that the astronauts go through is per NASA's requirements. So we work alongside to make sure that they have learned and gone through all the orientation processes, and they're familiarized with the operations on the station from a NASA perspective. And then there's, of course, other information that we provide about Axiom Space and some of the outreach and activities that we are leading.
Now, within this, will they train at NASA facilities, or will they train, or does Axiom have their own kind of a model space station built somewhere like we see in the NASA movies where there's a space station and an underwater training facility? Does Axiom have their own, or will they train at the NASA facilities?
So we have our own in the sense that we're building the future, the intended successor of the International Space Station. So if you come to our Houston facilities, we have our modules, the demonstration modules that are being worked on right now. But in terms of the ISS, we work with the Johnson Space Center to go through some of those training.
Now, we have one designated astronaut, which is Group Captain Shukla, and we have Group Captain Nair as a backup.
That's correct.
How does it work?
So Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla has been assigned the role of pilot, and of course, pending approval from the ISS multilateral panel. And then Group Captain Prashant Balakrishnan Nair is the backup, like you mentioned.
So what will be his role, which is Group Captain Nair's role? What will be his role?
So he also undergoes a lot of the same training as pilot. And the intention is that way, 2 of India's astronauts are prepared for human spaceflight in the future.
And when is the mission likely to take place?
The plan right now, currently scheduled no earlier than spring 2025.
And spring 2025 means sometime between April and June of 2025?
As of now, that is what we're aiming towards, and we'll learn a little bit more sooner.
Now, SpaceX Crew Dragon was involved in what's called the recovery mission for the astronauts. I understand recovery is a term which the media uses for the Boeing Starliner, which got stuck there and they didn't bring back. Does that affect any way the Axiom 4 mission? Because 2 astronauts were not accommodated on the Crew Dragon because they went with 2 empty seats.
Right.
And so are they going to be accommodated, or this 4 crew is final?
So the crew is, again, pending approval, but it's completely separate from the Crew 9, completely 2 independent projects. And of course, we're looking forward to welcoming Crew 9 back to Earth very shortly. But of course, other than that, we keep updated with NASA and Boeing's communications. But of course, Axiom 4 is independent of that.
So the Indian astronaut going to the International Space Station is unlikely to be delayed because the SpaceX Crew Dragon would be used to ferry astronauts back, especially Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore?
From our understanding, those are 2 independent missions, but we'll keep updated to make sure that those timelines are not affected.
Beyond this is the first time when ISRO, NASA, and Axiom Space are collaborating on human spaceflight. See, India has also announced its Gaganyaan program, which is to send an Indian astronaut in space from Sriharikota. Is Axiom Space looking at a longer collaboration with India?
We're absolutely exploring a long-term collaboration in India. Our hopes is that this is just the beginning, that Axiom 4 is just a stepping stone to so many possibilities. Of course, ISRO and the private space sector is one, but also non-space sectors, right? With Axiom Station, there's the ability to perform meaningful research and manufacturing that can benefit not just the space sector, but all sectors, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, AI and technology. And so we're very much looking forward to partnering with more companies, countries, and agencies.
So do you think Indian rockets could someday be used for sending missions to what could be the successor to the International Space Station, which is the private station which Axiom is building?
I would love to see that. I think for us as a company, it's so important that our supply chain is global and diverse. And so we want to see launch vehicles, capsules, processing facilities in different countries, even module, manufacturing capabilities as well. So we're definitely looking into that.
Is that the only reason, or are you looking at the frugal and low-cost engineering which India offers?
I think the possibilities and the potential that India carries is immense, and just the successes that we've seen with Chandrayaan 3 have shown us as as humanity that India is emerging to be a space superpower, and we're very excited to be a part of that story.
Is there a place for the Indian private companies and startups which are now kind of getting energized? Is there a place for them on this uh, private space station which Axiom is likely to build?
Absolutely. And that's something that we're actively exploring. And I think we'll be able to announce some of those things hopefully in the next year.
What would be the Indian astronaut's role on the Crew Dragon? You said as a pilot, but what does the pilot do there?
Yeah, so of course, the navigation, a lot of the Crew Dragon is autonomous, but the pilot is able to understand a lot more of the emergency protocols, the docking protocols, and have valuable insights into the navigation.
And I believe Axiom has deputed one of the most experienced women astronauts for this mission as the commander. Is that correct? And who is that?
That is correct. The assigned commander is the most decorated Axiom astronaut, former NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. She's an inspiration to so many women in the space sector and beyond, and we're very excited to have her on, hopefully, the Axiom 4 mission.
Now, alongside Peggy, we have the Indian astronaut, which could be Group Captain Shukla. Who are the other two crew members?
Absolutely. So we have India represented. We also have Poland and Hungary. Poland, we have assigned mission specialist Slavos Uznanski of Poland. He's also representing the European Space Agency. And then our fourth seat, mission specialist Tibor Kapu, is from Hungary. And what's very exciting is that Axiom 4 is the realization of the return for human spaceflight, of course, for India after 40 years, but also for Poland and Hungary as they embark on their first mission aboard the International Space Station, but also flying their second national astronaut after almost 40 years.
You did this by design.
I think so. It's incredible to see how these commercial astronaut missions have transformed international collaboration in space, and we're very excited to be a part of that journey.
What is the Indian astronaut likely to do when he is at the International Space Station? You said he's piloting the Crew Dragon. Great. But they have, a fortnight at the space station? What will they do there?
Yep, about a 10 to 14-day mission. They'll be conducting meaningful research. So this could be biomedical research, human health research, of course, because of the adaptations in space, technology demonstrations to understand how microgravity can change certain aspects. And that will, of course, help inform future projects. And then, of course, very important is STEM outreach to be able to make sure that he's being able to access students all around the world.
Now, we already have one Indian origin astronaut, which is Commander Sunita Williams at the International Space Station. She's likely to be back in February of 2025. She has said she would be interacting with the Indian astronaut designates. What would that interaction entail?
I'm not too sure, but I would be very excited to see that. That would be incredible. And I think that would just play out the, ISRO, NASA, Axiom space collaboration perfectly.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that it's going to be a commercial mission, and that is what ISRO has also announced, that they are paying a certain sum of money to Axiom Space, and it's a three-way contract between ISRO, NASA, and Axiom Space for this Axiom 4 flight. Can you tell me what is the likely cost? If you can't disclose, what is the general cost which Axiom charges for training an astronaut? You've already had 3 missions earlier.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure the numbers are in public domain.
Absolutely. So the cost of the missions are definitely complex and dynamic. It really depends on case by case basis. But in general, the seat cost is in the mid 60 million range.
But we have one prime candidate and a standby candidate also. Does that increase the cost?
I'm not sure if that can be disclosed, but
Okay, fair. And I cannot but ask you, how is the liability addressed for a mission like this?
Well, for Axiom Space, our vision is to create a thriving home in space that benefits all of humanity. And a big part of humanity is to make sure that they are safe and in good physical, but also psychological health. So that's something that is always a priority for us in all of our missions and in everything we do afterwards.
No, why this has become important is with astronaut Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, and the phrase being used was they are stuck in space and they are stranded in space. They are really not stranded, in my opinion. There was always a plan A and a plan B to bring them back. But in case things go wrong, who takes care of the liability? Is it Axiom? Is it NASA? Or does ISRO have to take the insurance?
I think that is a very complicated issue, and I think some of those details are probably not public. But of course, like you mentioned, there's always a plan A, plan B. Things change. Space is hard, and it's always very dynamic. So we're always planning several different case scenarios.
And you said it's likely to happen in the spring of 2025 when an Indian astronaut will visit the International Space Station. India is looking forward to that, and it's going to be an exciting mission to report and to tell the story about. From here till launch, how is the training of the astronauts pan out?
Absolutely. So in the next couple weeks, the AX4 crew will be traveling to Europe for the European Space Agency and then to JAXA for the Japanese Space Agency, getting familiarized with all the different segments of the International Space Station. And then from the months to come, they will have more details about the procedures, the protocols for the research, all the activities that they will be doing on station. And from there, they will have a quarantine period, and then we'll be at launch.
And I believe you trust Falcon 9 as a rocket?
We've been partnering with them since AX1, and so we're very excited to be working with them again.
And True Dragon is a reliable crew module to send an Indian astronaut to space?
We believe so. Absolutely.
It's an exciting time for India and the US and Axiom. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Axiom went through a small financial crisis. Is that over?
So I think there were some maybe articles that came out, but we're a startup. We're, again, dynamic. Space is difficult. And I think there's always going to be challenges on the road, but we're looking far ahead. There's a very challenging undertaking that we've adopted, which is to build a space station. We're also building spacesuits. We're the only company building spacesuits that will be used on the Artemis 3 mission. So,
Which is, let me clarify, a spacesuit to be used on the moon.
Yes.
Correct? Not just any spacesuit.
That's very good clarification. So we were already building spacesuits for our space station for low Earth orbit. And then NASA awarded us a contract to build the spacesuits for the moon. And if you remember the Apollo missions, these spacesuits will be very different because the astronauts have to go on much longer duration spacewalks and harsher environments, right, with the south pole of the moon. And so these spacesuits are going to protect the astronaut from what's to come.
Axiom has a plan to make their own space station. India also has a plan to make its own space station by 2035, which our Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced, which is the Bharatiya Antariksh Station. Can't the two of them work together, have a single station, which could be easier for the world?
I think that's a great idea. But with the plans of India and Axiom Space, we are standing ready to support India in their mission for the Bharatiya Antariksh Station, whether it's discussions on interoperability if there's two stations, whether it's building a module for a country partner, or even working on something like space-to-space trade, right? If we have multiple space stations, maybe each of those have different capabilities. There's so much that's left to be done in terms of workforce development, right? In India, in the US, globally. And so there's a lot of conversations that are to come, and we're very excited.
And India also plans to send an Indian to the moon by 2040. That is the roadmap which Prime Minister Narendra Modi has laid out. Is there any chance of Axiom and ISRO or Axiom and India partnering on that mission to the moon being launched by India?
We would love to see that. Yep.
Maybe the Axiom suit can be used?
Absolutely. The Axiom spacesuit is going to be providing NASA with affordable, commercially developed, human-rated systems that can be used to access, live, and work on the moon. And we would be happy to work with other partners as well.
You work with other countries as well, and how is the partnership there?
It's a great idea. So we've conducted 3 missions till date. On Axiom 2, we worked with the Saudi Space Agency. We flew the first Saudi female astronaut.
Wow.
On Axiom 3, we worked with the European Space Agency, with Sweden, with Italy, and with Turkey as well. We flew the first Turkish astronaut ever, which was very exciting. And of course, there's a lot that we're doing. We're a global company now. With Italy, for example, we've partnered with Prada for the Axiom spacesuit. We also partnered with Thales Alenia to build the first module of our space station. And we'd love to see that type of supply chain globally.
What about using the Indian talent for engineering some of the products which Axiom wants to build? America is very expensive to build stuff. India can offer frugal engineering. Possibilities?
Definitely, definitely. I would love to talk.
Have you had discussions with any of the Indian companies or with any Indian startups looking towards a broader supply chain from India?
Yep, that's a big goal of my trip here right now, is to continue discussions and continue exploring partnerships with India, whether it is a space agency, government ministries, or the private sector. There's so many possibilities.
Anything else which I need to know about the Indian astronaut going to the International Space Station, which I may have missed out in asking you?
We're launching, scheduled no earlier than spring 2025 from NASA Kennedy Space Center, and we're very excited to again be a part of India's journey as it writes its next chapter of human spaceflight.
Thanks a lot for speaking to me.
Thank you so much, sir.
Such a pleasure listening to you and understanding the complexities of this NASA, ISRO, partly Axiom, the complexities of this whole mission and how an Indian astronaut will finally go to the International Space Station. Very exciting times for India, as India's astronaut, which India calls them Gaganyatri, is likely to head to the International Space Station. India is always very proud to have India's daughter, Indian origin astronaut commander Sunita Williams at the International Space Station. But to have an Indian astronaut at the International Space Station would be a very interesting day for India and also for NASA. The future is all about collaboration. And the NASA, ISRO, Axiom space mission to the International Space Station is an opening towards that. India has already signed the Artemis Accords. Who knows, in future, India may participate in the Artemis missions. The future is bright for India in space and for collaboration between India and America in space. Thanks a lot for speaking to me, Pearly.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
What a pleasure learning from you. So that was Pearly Pandya, head of the international government business for Axiom Space, the company which is training India's astronauts to go to the International Space Station. In New Delhi, Pala Bagla, NDTV.